Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Kitchen time today is a rare event. It's actually unmounting. It'll be followed by remounting, no doubt, but I haven't actually made my mind up yet. But taking plants off of a mount worries people to death. It's one of those events that if you have to do it, you have to do it. Just get on with it, basically. Sitting there worrying about it, you know, is not going to get it done, is it? Except the fact that you will lose some roots. Preferably do it at a time when new roots are growing so that the damage limitation is there. You know, replace old ones with new ones, damaged ones with new ones, all that. First job is to get that spike off. Those blooms are nearly gone. So that can come off. Now this plant has already got one new growth. However, that new growth hasn't started its new roots yet. Not properly anyway. We've got aerial roots here. This end hasn't started its new growth yet, but oh, yes it has, it's just starting now. So both leads are now getting going again. So first job, get it off. This is only tied on with fishing line, so and it's been on this mount a very long time, so the fishing line won't be doing much at all, quite honestly. It'll just be there. The plant will be holding itself on. The fact that it's been on there some considerable time, there will be a good set of roots attached. They will tear. You can do it gently, you can try and do it as gently as you can, but you will tear some roots. You just have to accept it. But coming at it from the sides like this, gently. Now don't forget, this goes back to the days when I used to put the moss on first, then put the plant on, and then put some more moss on top of the roots. Now as a consequence, that came off incredibly easy. Firstly, I suspect a fair bit of this moss is just totally entangled with roots, and at this point round the back of the plant there'll be the old roots. Now this has actually torn some of the mount off, so the roots have held onto the mount so hard that it's actually torn some of the mount. This in fact is not much moss at all. It's almost solid roots. Yeah, it is. It's almost solid roots. They're a very fine root system on this Miltonia, and they just form a mat. I don't think I'm going to get much of that off, quite honestly. So the next thing to do is decide, am I going to keep that spike? Nope, the blooms are fading. They would only be there a few more days anyway, so we'll get that out of the way. Right, now we've got to decide where to split it. We've got a new growth here, healthy growth here, reasonable growth behind it, and then a small inferior bulb here. Difficult to tell. That bulb's not, well, it is part of it, but it doesn't matter, it doesn't count. This is the bit that's awkward, this end, because this end has got this bulb, which has just got its new growth showing, the bulb directly behind it, and then the one behind that is quite small and inferior, and then there's a leafless bulb behind that. So that's where I'm going to cut it there. That's the first cut. There may be more. Oh. Ow. Come on. Yeah, I'm going to cut that there. Let's see what that gives us. Now the problem now is my immediate response is to look at the rhizome. And the rhizome has a tinge of pink. Yeah, well this plant had fusarium when I got it, and it was treated. And I'm not going to start cutting the new part of the plant to make sure the treatment's worked. It'll have to put up with it. I'm assuming it has cured itself and grown on clean simply because the bulbs have got bigger and it has bloomed well. So I'm assuming it's free. So I'm just going to take this old section of roots off, leaving the newer ones. So, you know, these are, if they are hydrated, they will start to grow. They're not too far gone, they're not crispy, they will come back. These have even started branching recently. So that's piece number one, effectively 3 leaved bulbs, leading up to a good size one here and an equal size one here, both of which bloomed, and a new growth. Now what we're going to have to do with that is put that on the mount there. That's quite flat, pleased with that. The fact that this bulb sticks outwards is irrelevant, it's an old one. It might shoot out if this kicks off. All of the roots will be against the mount. The new growth will be round the back of here where the mount is, but it'll push through. If I do it the other way round like that, then this automatically grows away from the mount, and the next thing that will happen is it'll push out aerial roots. So I'd rather have it against the mount and let it push the plant away from the mount and form its bulb there, probably. So that's that piece. That's a relatively small piece actually. And this is the one that's already got its new growth. So new growth, preceded by a large bulb that bloomed, preceded by another one with leaves, preceded by not much worth bothering with. So that's my next cut there. Good, that's good. Most of the old roots went with that bit. You could plant that and that would probably shoot out. I don't want 3, I've already got 2 now where I had 1. And due to certain naughty people, it looks like we're going to have quite a few more orchids. Courtesy of Burnham's and naughty people doing birthday presents. Could be good if that grows. So we've got this has got this new growth already pushing. It's got another one here, an eye. Could potentially shoot out. So I'm making sure at this point the sheaths come off, because this one is prone to pushing the roots skywards if the sheaths are there, especially the woody ones. In its natural environment, the sheaths probably wouldn't go woody, they would stay a lot greener and softer due to the sheer amount of rain and everything that would be going on it. Well, that rhizome's got a tinge of pink, but nothing worth bothering with. In fact, it's so little you'd probably miss it. I'm just happened to be looking for it because I knew the whole plant had it once. So there we go. So another, I would say, successful rescue from the dreaded F. It is possible, it's always worth having a go. You may not succeed. Right, now I've got to make my decision. Do we go that way? In fact, we probably will, because if that eye pushes, again, it'll ease the plant away from the mount. This one's sticking straight out. This is a new growth. This is highly likely it will bloom. I doubt if it'll be blind. Hasn't finished maturing yet. And it's got a very, very short rhizome. So if and when any roots come out of the base of this piece, they'll be close enough to the mount. And that will go flat like that as well. Right, so those are the bits we're keeping. That bit and that bit. We've got a couple of bits in our coffee, not much. A little bit of moss. It won't hurt. I'll live. Right, so there's not really any cleaning up to do with that. I'm not trimming roots or anything. Those that are there are going to stay. And even though a lot of them have been aerial, they've been watered, so they haven't remained dry. And the fact that they've been hydrated on a regular basis, you know, the mounts do get watered quite often, although not so much now. They're not pure aerial roots, they're half and half. So their transition to sitting on some moss shouldn't be too bad. Right, so I shall, now that I can see what I've got and how big it is, I can go and choose some suitable mounts. And remember what I said, you know, don't always think that you've got to have a mount up that way. That way is perfectly acceptable for a plant that tends to grow linearly and not vertically. So we will go and find a couple of mounts suitable for such plants and get some moss sorted out. I really am going to have to go and get some more live moss. I've got so little left, but I'll have enough to do these, and I'm not sure I've got any more mounts to do this year anyway. I do have some repots to do. Right, and notice I have some newspaper. Literally stopped at a burger van on the side of the road at one point over the weekend, and the guy always has some, you know, a couple of daily newspapers for people to read while they're waiting for their stuff to be cooked. And I said, have you got any old ones, like yesterday's or anything that you don't want anymore? So I've got a pile of newspapers as well as my sausage and egg roll. So that was good. Right, I'll be back. Okay, so we've got our two pieces and mount going this way this time, not that way. That is the tendency for growth, so that's what we'll have. Now obviously I'm going to put this up one end of the mount, as it's a long mount, so that the direction of growth can grow into the space, and that way we might get several years. We may not. It might decide to just grow upwards and go straight off the top, but yeah, there's no point in wasting this bit of mount. I doubt if anything's going to grow out of here. Yeah, so we can come right back here, literally. And it will look a little odd, but that's where it's going to go. And because it's a Miltonia, and I've now got Oncidium types including Miltonias on mounts, they do very well if they're kept moist. Now on a mount there is a tendency to totally dry in between watering, especially in the warmer weather. So for once, this is unusual, we're going to have some moss underneath the roots. Now I don't normally do this now with mounts, I normally put the moss on top. That way, if the root's attached to the mount and I need to replace the moss, I can just tease the moss off the top without having to unmount it. But the plan is that this is going to stay on here a long time, so it's going to have some moss underneath. That way these roots will stay hydrated. They may start branching as a consequence, so that's good stuff. The next thing I've got to decide is I am actually going to wire this in place, simply because I want it to stay still. Now I often use the fishing line, but you can use wire, which I will this time round. So I need this to stay still. So let's see if we can get a turn round before we start adding the moss. Obviously with wire you don't want to go round too many times because it looks a bit ugly. In fact, I'm going to use wire to hold it in place, and then I'm going to use the fishing line to tie the moss on. That's a more economical use of the wire. So about there. Bend that over the top, and then I can pull this bit tight. Got a nice little nook there. Come back round here. I can let go now. All I've got to do is twist those two pieces together. And that's the plant secure. Then we can come back round and do the moss. Right, that's the plant not going anywhere. Now all we've got to do is arrange our moss with hopefully a little bit of fishing line we've got left. Must get round to getting that. Especially now I've twigged that there is a fishing tackle shop just round the corner. I don't need a lot because I'm going to wind that way like I did with the wire. It'd be silly doing that, wouldn't it? What would I be holding here? Well, I mean, if the plant starts to grow into that area, I can always add some new moss in the path of the growth. But at the moment, that's all I've got, and this is where the roots are. So that's the only place I'm going to be tying, and this is the narrow bit. So hopefully it won't use so much. So this is just to hold the moss on now, not to hold the plant. Right, do we want, we'll have some more zombie moss and then we'll put some live moss on the top. But as I haven't got huge amounts of live moss, we'll use the zombie moss to keep these roots that I've got hydrated now. I need these to stay moist, not really totally dry out. They will, you know, depending on my watering frequency, they will dry out. But for the time being, I want them reasonably moist, because I've got a feeling that they will start to branch. So I've just got a few roots. I'm just putting a little bit in the line of fire, basically, because this new growth that's pointing upwards here is liable to push some roots out, and if it does, they'll go in all directions. So it'd be nice to have a piece of moss there ready for them to grow into. Right, so that's the zombie moss. Now what about some live moss? We've got a huge amount here, but there's enough to, you know, you don't need to cover the whole thing with live moss. You only need to get some going. It will spread, you know, it will do its own thing. Right, that'll do. Dry hands for tying. That should all stay there because the plant's not going to wobble and knock it off, because the wire's holding the plant. And I can get my first loop of fishing line on, and then we can start to attach the moss. When you start doing this with the moss, look what you're doing, where each turn's going to go to get the maximum effect, especially if you haven't got enough. Oh, rats. I'll just have to tie it off. I was assuming that would go round quite a few times, but it's not going to. So we'll need some more, won't we? That was bad. Out of practice. I normally judge that the wrong way and actually have far too much and end up wasting some, but doing it in pieces at least doesn't waste any, but it means tying off more often, which some people find a bit fiddly. That bit I don't find fiddly. I'll leave those ends because I don't know where I'm going to tie now. Right, let's get some more then, won't we? Ow! That hurt. Make sure I've got enough this time. I'll probably end up with stacks too much, but so be it. I'm not going to be able to put this loop on. I'm just going to have to tie it, because I won't be able to go over the top of the plant now. So I'll just have to tie the loop around the back, basically. See what I'm doing here in this light. that got it? Yeah. Right. Take two. Thanks. Not much more moss fallen off. There's a little bit come off. Go back there. Right. Come on. Now this bit's going to have to go under there. Then we can come round and go round once more that side of that growth. And now we need to come round the front where that little loose bit is. That's the bit that's ready for growing into. And that'll do. That'll hold it all in place now. Right, some of the tie to. That one will do. So, you know, when you're tying two ends together, which one you choose, really, any of the loose ones will do, as long as it grabs hold of something. You know, Ince's started gluing his ends together so that they don't come undone. I've never had one come undone yet, but doesn't mean to say it won't, I suppose. If it's glued, it won't, that's for sure. No tags, I'm afraid, today. Well, yeah, I might go and do some in a minute. Yeah, happy with that. The most likely place for new roots is here. They've got something to grow into, and I can always add some more as the plant grows. If and when it does. Sorry, when it does. We're not having any of this if nonsense. Of course it will grow. Right, now the next bit has got its new growth here. So ideally, you'd think that would be the best thing to do, wouldn't you? But this is going to produce a new lead in a new direction of growth, and that direction of growth will be away from the mount if I do it that way round, so it's going that way. But what I'm going to do is leave this end, this piece of the rhizome, flexible, in other words not tight, so that the new growth, when it pushes and swells, will just push that away, but this bit will be tied on tight. So again, I think I'm going to wire it, and I'll wire that piece, and then that piece can come out and grow where it wants, and then the next direction of growth can grow where it wants, and it's highly likely to go that way, but this time we've got no guarantee, so I am going to leave a bit. You see, if the growth is there and it comes out here, like this, then the next direction of growth could go that way. And then we're heading back to the back of the plant. So I will leave a little bit of a gap this time at the end. But again, I want most of these roots in something. So, there. So we stick our zombie moss on. It's going to sit on that. This zombie moss looks a strange colour. It's because it's used but not used. I got it out ready to use and didn't use it, and it had some charcoal mixed in with it, so it went a dark colour, a bit black, due to the dust on the charcoal. But if I've got any zombie moss left over, like, you know, I don't throw it away, I squeeze it out and just put it to one side, and then just come and rehydrate it. I don't waste it. Right, and I think we will wire this again. So I need that wired about there. I think I'm going to have to come this side of this bulb, and then that's got room to push that away. That new growth will push this away from the mount against the tension, so that's what we'll do. And I'm going to wire it again because it's just easier in the long run. So I just need to go around there. don't think I pushed enough over the top there. No, I've got a silly little short bit. We'll pull it. Need something to be able to twist, don't I? So we'll add a little bit on. That's better. And we can pull that tight this way round. Goody. Getting a bit, I'm not sure whether I'm actually short of this bonsai wire or not, because I'm pretty sure there's a bag of it down in the shed from when I used to have lots of different thicknesses for actual use on bonsai, you know, for wiring branches and all that sort of stuff that you're doing. You have lots of different thicknesses depending on the branch that you're doing, or even the trunk, you know, on younger trees. But it wouldn't all be suitable for this. I'm pretty sure there's a bag of it down in the shed, along with all sorts of other things. My shed is disintegrating. The whole section of the side has just rotted off. And when you walk inside now, the floor sinks, so some of the support beams have gone as well. It's going to fall down one day. Well, it's not my shed, is it? I'm certainly not doing anything about it. You know, there's very little in that shed that's of importance to me. The roof leaks, you know, it's just not very good. And I'm certainly not replacing it. Right, so that's that. That's capable of pushing off. In fact, there's a nice little twist there, which I can probably do by clamping this down with the fishing line when I go around. Right, so again, we'll have some zombie moss on the top. I am going a bit heavier on the moss this time round because of what it is. An awful lot of my Miltonias Oncidium types have been mounted this year, or towards the end of last year in some cases, and they've all done very well. So, you know, if it works, do it. But, you know, I appreciate that some people can't cope with mounts, especially indoors. They just dry so fast. They dry fast enough in the grow room when it gets hot. But they're not drying as fast as they would in that temperature in the home, simply because I've got the humidity in there. You can't have humidity that high in the home unless you've got a, you know, like a self-contained area, something like that. Otherwise all your blinking carpets and curtains would be dripping, all green and mouldy and everything. You don't want all that, do you? Right, so there we go. Now we want some fishing line to secure that lot. Oops. Cloth on the floor, and then we're done. We'll have a good amount this time, even though I am going round the other way. Not nice running out. It still looks like there's a single or double layer left. So it's not actually run out yet, but it is getting close. Like I said, I can't think of anything else that I'll be mounting this year. I don't think. There might be an odd one somewhere lurking, because I have got some pots to look at. Next time I go round the pots watering, any pot that looks like it needs a repot due to old tired media or anything like that is coming out. And of course we've also got the new batch. You know, we did buy quite a lot of new plants relatively recently. It's a matter of will they wait till the spring or not, as the case may be. But a lot of those new ones were large plants. They won't be going on a mount, too big. You can have a big plant on a mount if you want, but it gets a bit clumsy to handle, and does take up a fair bit of room on your hanging space. Gotcha. Right. First one through the middle. Next one through the middle. And then we've got to come round the front. So we'll come round this end now and get over this lot. Not garrot the new growth in the process. Sticking out at a funny angle, that new growth. So, right, I think that's got the moss. Yeah, so that'll do. Right, I'm going to do something I don't normally do, but I'm going to pull some of the loops before I tie. So just go round like that. Oh, let go. It's got a twist in it. And that pulls those two together, makes it a little bit tighter. That's before I go through my V and tie off. So it just makes the loops a little bit tighter. Should you need to do so, I mean, you don't always need to do that. You're determined to catch on that corner, aren't you? That's twice. Right. See, what you can do is when you get to this stage, you know, I could go right up here and put that round there, and then I've got even more tension on the loops by just pulling that together. You see how it puts tension on it? If you do that and then you want to tie a, what I call an air knot, yeah, you go round once, go round again. Oops, it slipped. So you've actually gone round twice, and then because it's in the air, see how it slips, but it only slips so far if you go round twice, and then when you do your last one, it'll lock it all in place. There we go. Gotcha. Oof. I have to be careful with the fishing line with the loose ends that they don't fall on the floor, because the cats will play with them. You know what cats are like. Anything that can move, they will, you know, bat around, and of course they put things in their mouth. And we don't want them swallowing a bit of fishing line, do we? Right, so that's that one. It's, the new growth is round the back here, so the new growth will come out here upwards, yeah, but it might extend a bit as well, and then what happens with the subsequent growth is unknown. Because if this next growth comes up here, the one after that could go that way, it could go that way. It could even, in theory, come out towards us, but unlikely. So that's that one. And then the other one has already got one new growth underway, but it's got a short rhizome. So if it does push out roots, they will go straight in the moss. That are good. And there is the start of an embryo eye round this side, which, having been disturbed now and the spike been taken off, that one might push as well, and we'll then end up with two leads heading in two directions. There we go. And now that all the faffing around is finished, now is the time to put your hook on. Because if you do it earlier in the process, it'll catch on everything, and tie up your fishing line, and if you put that down, you'll bend it. So do it last. Yeah. You can also adjust the length of your hook at that point if you choose to do so. I tend to have a medium length hook unless I know I want a long one, and I often end up shortening it. It depends which shelf I end up putting it on. So there we go, two mounts, one plant, split into two. Both have 3 bulbs, although one of them is a new extension. And they should grow on nicely now. Well, pleased with that. And it does make a change to have some mounts going in the other direction, taking up all my hanging space. Yeah, as I said, vertical takes up not much space at all, but then you can't stack them too high if you've got lots of vertical mounts, because you've got to have a gap. Whereas those two together like that don't take up a lot of space. We shall see. I'm pretty sure I know where I'm going to put them anyway. Right, there we go. See you next time. Thanks for dropping by. Oh, wrong button.